A warm welcome, the Italian Dev here. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to easily implement infinite scroll in a React.js application using React Virtuoso Component. If you like this type of content, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's go straight into the code. Let's start by creating a brand new React.js application. Open your terminal and type the command npx create React app, and then let's call this project React Infinite Scroll. Press enter and let's wait for all the dependency to be installed. Now that all the dependencies are installed, we can navigate inside the newly created folder and open it in your editor of choice. I'm gonna use Visual Studio Code, so for me it's code. Now open the source folder, app.js file, and let's remove all this boilerplate code that is returned from the app function that we don't need, and also this import logo at the top. So now we have a clean app function we can work on. Now let's think on what we need to implement infinite scroll in our React application. As I said during the intro of this video, we will make use of React Virtuoso Component. So open your browser and navigate to virtuoso.dev, and so directly from their documentation page we can read React Virtuoso is a family of powerful yet easy to use React components that can render enormous dataset. And in particular, if we navigate to scenarios and endless scrolling, here we can find exactly what we need. This endReached callback is a prop received by Virtuoso Component that automatically load more items when the user scrolls to the bottom of the list. As you can see in their showcase here, they have this list of users, and when we reach the end, this endReached callback will call a load more function that will simply load more user, and so our infinite scroll is served to our user. So let's go back to the getting started page where we can grab the npm install command, so npm install React Virtuoso, thanks which we can bring this package inside our React application. So back to Visual Studio Code, open the integrated terminal, paste the command you just copied, press enter, and let's wait for it to be installed. Perfect, so far so good. Now we have Virtuoso inside our React application. Now let's go back to the browser, and in their showcase they show the simple list of users, but for this tutorial let's just grab some random photos from Unsplash API and show them in an infinite scroll fashion. So open a new tab, navigate to unsplash.com/developers. If you don't have an account yet, just sign up for free. And from here, let's start by reading some documentation so we exactly know what we are doing. If we keep scrolling, we reach this part where they show a base URL from which we can construct the final URL that will bring us to retrieve from their API some random photos. So let's copy this base URL. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and pass this to a variable. So const base URL equal, let's paste it, and let me also wrap it into multiple lines so you can easily see it. And so now we have this base URL. As you can see, we need an access key, but first let's see how we can construct exactly a new URL that allow us to grab some random photos. And as you can see, back on the top again, here we have this get a random photo section. So jump to the documentation, and as you can see, we have this get method, and after /photos, there is a /random is appended at the end. And then there is a list of useful parameters we can pass to this URL, and the one we need is count, so the number of photos to return. So the default is 1, so if we don't pass any value or we pass count equal to 1, it will just give us back a single photo. And the maximum value this count parameter can accept is 30. So let's go back again to our code, and after photos / let's append random /. And then this question mark starts the parameter section of the URL, and after the client ID, let's also add and count equal, and for now let's just hardcore the value of 5. 5 could be fine. So when we will knock a Unsplash API door using this URL, we shall receive back 5 random photos, but we are still missing one parameters, and this your access key. So again, back to the browser. Now let's navigate to your apps. If you don't have an application, just click this new application button, select all these checkboxes and also accept the terms. Then it requires an application name, so let's just React.js infinite scroll tutorial. Should be fine. And then also let's copy paste to description because it's a mandatory value. Then create application. And now if we scroll, here is the request. As you can see, we have a quota of 50 requests per hour. If we navigate to this keys section, here you can find your access key. Don't copy mine because I'm gonna delete this application after the tutorial is published on my channel. So let's copy to the clipboard, pass it to a new variable, so const access key equal and paste, then save. What I'm doing now is not a best practice because, you know, here we are in a development environment that I'm just showcasing how to implement infinite scroll, but in a production environment, you never pass secrets directly in your source code. Either use a .env file, but the best approach right now is to store them in a secret ops platform. I am a huge fan of Doppler, but you can use the one provided by AWS, Google Cloud, and more. So now that we have this access key, let's turn this base URL in a template string. So using backtick, copy this one inside here, and then instead of passing this your access key string, let's simply add access key. Perfect. So now we have our base URL constructed. We have our Virtuoso component installed in our application. And now let's start thinking on how to grab these random photos and then how to show them using the Virtuoso component. So now let's create a React state in which we will store our photos grabbed from Unsplash. So const photos and the setter set photos is equal to use state auto import, and let's start with an empty array. Then let's create a use effect hook which will return a callback function and also an array of dependencies. Now inside this use effect, so as soon as our component will mount, we need to make the call to the Unsplash API. Since this is an asynchronous function and the use effect hook cannot return an asynchronous function, what we can do is to simply call a function inside here, so get photos, and this function, we are gonna create this function in just a few seconds, and then just in case of an error, catch console.error. So now, as I said, we need to create this getPhotos asynchronous function. And before I forget, let's also pass this getPhotos to the dependency array list. Now, this getPhoto function, as I said, is an asynchronous process. So to pass an asynchronous process to useEffect and avoid that useEffect will continuously run and so re-render our component, we need to wrap this getPhotos asynchronous function inside the use callback hook. So const getPhotos is equal to use callback auto import, and this use callback will return an asynchronous callback function in this case, and also an array of dependency. Now inside this use callback we can make the call to Unsplash API. So const response is equal to what? Await fetch, and we can pass to the fetch method the URL we have created before, so base URL. Now let's take from this response the data, so const data is equal to await response.json, and for now let's simply console.log this data, and if we did everything right, we should receive back 5 random photos. Now, just to avoid this error, let's return a div with the h1 tag inside saying React infinite scroll virtuoso. Now, let's save, open the integrated terminal, run the command npm run start. This will fire up a development server which will serve our application at localhost port 3000. Let's start opening the developer tools. And as you can see, we did everything right, hopefully, and we have back an array of 5 objects, because remember, here we passed the count value as 5, and each of them contains some data given back Unsplash, and we will need this URLs object, and we will take one of them, maybe the small one, and thanks to this URL we will show our photo inside the Virtuoso component. So now we know how to successfully grab 5 random photos from Unsplash API. So instead of just console logging them, let's use the setter of our state so we can set this photo inside our state. But instead of just passing data inside our setter, we need to keep track of our previous state, because what happened when we will pass this method getPhotos to the endReached callback I showed before, this one, endReached callback. So we will pass our get photos. It means that we will grab 5 photos more, 5 photos more, 5 photos more, and we don't want that these new 5 photos that we'll grab will override the one we previously had. But we want to keep them in our state and add at the bottom every time the new photos we get back from Unsplash API. So let's grab the previous state and return an array composed of the previous state plus the new one data. Perfect. So now that we have everything set up, it's time to implement the Virtuoso element inside our DOM and return it from our app function. So let's pass some style to this div. And let's say we want the width of 100% the viewport width. Then we want the height of, in this case, let's make the 90% of the viewport height. And then let's also pass a text align property as center. So to have our photos in the center of the screen, and so our h1 tag. Then after the h1 tag, let's return what? Virtuoso. Press tab and the auto import will import it for me or for us if you have also it set up. Then we need to pass some props to Virtuoso. The first prop we will pass is data. So which data we want to show inside this React Virtuoso element? Our state, and so our photos. So let's pass photos here. Then we need to pass, as I said, the endReached callback. So as soon as our user reach the end of our page, this endReached callback needs to call what? Needs to call again this get photos asynchronous function. And this photo, what will do? We'll go to the API door, knock at the door with this URL and say, please give me 5 random photos. And with these 5 random photos, keep track of the previous state. So these are all the photos we already download and showed on our screen, plus 5 more attached at the end of our state. And so to the endReached, we need to pass get photos. So let's copy and pass. Then we can say overscan and pass a value of 200. And then, as you can see, this overscan is just a pixel value, and this property that make the component chunk the rendering of the new item so scroll. So if you want to have, let's say, a more extreme infinite scroll, so just losing a bit of smoothness, you can decrease this value. But in the showcasing are using this 200 that seems like it's not a default value, but it's a really good value to start from. I just used it, but you can play with it and see the effect. And then we need to pass the item content props, thanks which we tell Virtuoso what to show, because as of now, Virtuoso knows the data, so the photos, knows the function that allows Virtuoso to grab new photos from the API and so to add them to the photos list and show them, but it doesn't know how to show them on the screen. And here we are with the item content props that takes a callback function. This callback function has an index and the photo. it's simply a map over photos. So we are mapping over photos, and we have an index and a photo element. And from this map function, we will simply return what? An image tag. We need the key, because when we are mapping something, we need to pass a unique key to each element, and let's simply pass the index. Then we have the source, and the source is, as I showed you, is photo.urls. Let's grab this small one, so photos dot photo, sorry, not photos, because is this one right here that we receive from the map function, so photo.urls.small. And then let's just define a nolt property, because it's needed to any image element. And let's just pass a string literal saying photo, and then just the index. So it's like photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, photo 4. Let's save, and then go back to what? To the browser, and see if what we have done so far works. And so if we were able to successfully implement an infinite scroll using React Virtuoso in our React application. So as you can see, seems working, because I have a photo and the photo is starting right here. Let's keep an eye on this scroll bar, and let's see what happens. Scroll, scroll, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we reached 5. And look what happened. 6. Scroll again. 7. Scroll on the top. Infinite scroll. And so the photos keeps loading and are successfully showed on our DOM. So we can close this tutorial. Thank you everyone for staying with me till the end of this video. If you like this type of content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It will help me a lot. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Bye bye, the Italian Dev.